What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And this video is sort of tangentially still related to the Tom Aspinall eye poke debacle from UFC 321. But it's really about Anthony Smith taking a moment to respond to all the haters, respond to all the controversy that him and Chael sparked up during their desk portion, their analyst portion, right after UFC 321, when Tom Aspinall got poked in the eye and decided not to continue, and there was a no contest and whatnot. So Anthony Smith had some controversial statements. Just to recap, the gist of what they said. Okay. And I'm probably not getting it exactly right, but the gist of the vibe, I think, of the way people interpret it is like, generally in our sport, in MMA, when you get an eye poke, you fight through it. I think those were Chael's words. And then what Anthony explained as well was he had an incident where he got poked in the eye. It was via a legal strike, but his eyesight was impacted. And that was his situation, his scenario, he continued to fight through. So it was like the implication was that he felt as though, or him and Chael felt as though, that Tom should have continued to fight. He actually clarifies that in this video. So I want to give him an opportunity to do that. I'm going to show all these different clips. So man, this is just, for me, I think this entire video is amazing. I think that you guys should check out On Paper with Anthony Smith. And I think that Anthony Smith gets so much negativity and so much hate that is misguided. I think a lot of it comes from a lot of other YouTubers that cover the MMA space that just talk super negatively about Anthony Smith, don't seem to give him any credit, want to clown him for his losses or for some of his performances. And I don't understand where the hate comes from. I said this many times. I think that Anthony Smith does a great job. He did a great job on the Michael Bisping podcast before that ended. I think he's great on the analyst desk. He's really smart. I think he gives great honest takes. And I mean, he fought at the highest level. Yeah, like he took some losses. A lot of people have taken losses. I just don't understand. And a lot of people have had bumpy roads at the end of their career. I just never fully understood why there's so much vitriol thrown towards Anthony Smith. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start off this video with Anthony Smith responding to the haters, because he does that in this video. Normally, he more or less ignores, I think, the negative comments. And he of himself says in this clip, I don't read the comments. I stay out of there because I don't want to get my feelings hurt. Well, this time he actually looked in the comments, and I think he gives an amazing response to everybody that has criticized him, that says that who is he to talk about this? And, people call him this and that and say you should have no place to discuss this or weigh in on this. You've never fought at that level, blah, blah, blah. He gives a great response. And I think this is something that we, as part of the MMA community, as MMA fans, need to bear in mind when we want to get so hypercritical of fighters and analysts and whatnot. Just take a moment to think about, hey, maybe they didn't get to the highest level of the sport. Maybe not everybody's a Habib, or not everybody's an Alex Pereira. Okay, but this guy has earned his place in the sport and earned his opportunity to speak about it knowledgeably. He's been doing this in basically his entire life. And I think we have to bear that in mind and not be so critical. And I think he explains exactly why we should defer to his opinion with respect to MMA very nicely in this clip. Check it out.
Out of the comments, I get so confused where I'll say, like in situations where I'll say something and no one will actually debate what I'm saying. No one will actually debate it. They'll just attack my character and my career. And those two things have nothing to do with each other. I don't know why in any world, anybody that is, sitting wherever they are on their phone can like say, I don't have a position, or I'm not in a position to speak on this. So if I don't have a position to speak on this, I've been doing this for 20 years, my entire adult life. I have been in over 50 professional fights. I have almost as many amateur fights, trained all over the world with the best in the world. And I am 100% respected by my peers because of my journey and how I did it. And again, I'm not going to debate my career with you. Did I win them all? No, I didn't. I didn't win the title, but neither did you. And like the people saying, I don't have a position to speak on this. If I don't know how you do. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you're sitting on your couch telling me that I don't have any room to speak on this situation, then you should also shut the fuck up. And that's how I look at it. And that's absolutely why I don't take anything that those people say seriously. If your opinion mattered, we would be working together, but we don't. So it doesn't.
There you go. He said it doesn't matter. I got cut off there. I mean, that's facts, you know, and I think people get blinded by some of the outspoken folks on YouTube that are just so heavily critical, so harsh towards the fighters. And I think that makes people feel falsely empowered to be like, hey, I can do the same thing. I can criticize these guys. You also hear people criticize Dana White. Oh my God, he's terrible at running the promotion. He's so bad. He's so checked out. It's like, look, I don't know. I can't say one way or the other because we literally don't. If you're going to actually have a logical take on Dana White's performance, you need to understand all the intricacies of what goes into that job, not just the far and few between press appearances or when he shows up and does public speeches. We have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. And I think people just need to have a better understanding of what they're saying. They're saying things a lot of times out of turn without the right amount of knowledge or information. And, you know, look, people have the right to say what they want to say and they can do what they want to do. You keep criticizing Anthony Smith, but I thought this was a beautiful response to the haters. Short, sweet, to the point, not calling names, not going after fans. That's one thing that I don't like. It's like, hey, well, look at where I am and look at where you at. So obviously you're not doing that. Yeah, he didn't even take any low blows. He just says, listen, I'm in a position of authority. My record speaks for itself. I've been in the sport for this long. Even if he hadn't got that championship fight against Jon Jones, even if he had just had a number of MMA fights and maybe, you know, a handful of UFC fights, that still gives him way more authority to talk about this sport than probably like 99% of fans, right? Because most of us, even myself, obviously myself included in that list, right? I've never had a professional MMA fight. I do commentary for Fusion, but that's about the extent of my knowledge. I would 100% defer to Anthony in any case. Plus, he gives very intelligent takes. And yes, sometimes the takes, you might look at it and think, well, how can you say this when you didn't make it to the top? Well, how can fans say this when they didn't even compete in the sport? You know, and on top of that, what I instead of attacking Anthony Smith, I would give him credit that he feels he's not even thinking about, well, what am I qualified to say or not based on me reaching the highest levels of sport? No, he's just being honest and he's telling it like it is. And that's what we want to see. I think as fans, I want to see people being honest. That's why I like TJ Dillashaw. That's why I like Anthony Smith. I like fighters and analysts that are going to come through and say what they truly believe. All right, now moving on, we come up to another great clip where Anthony Smith, despite all the backlash, stands firm with his opinion and stands firm that he's not going to apologize for what he said because, again, he was speaking from the heart. I agree with him 100%. Check this out.
I'm not going to apologize for being upset that the fight ended the way that it ended. What about the millions of people that paid 80 whatever dollars because this is the fight that they wanted to see? Like, I represent those opinions because that's how I feel. I mean, how much money do you think people spent to go to the event live? How many people flew over from the UK? You know how much an Emirates flight is from the UK to Abu Dhabi? It ain't fucking cheap. And those people are allowed to be upset, and I represent those class of people. So I was upset. I got to watch it for free from ESPN. Cost me $0, and in fact, got paid a shit ton of money to do it. And I was upset about it. I can't imagine how.
So that is a very valid point. This is why the crowd was booing. Again, this doesn't mean, and Anthony Smith goes on to say later too, I'm not even saying that Tom should have continued to fight, but he had an opinion. He had an immediate reaction in response to the fight ending the way it did. And it was probably the sentiment of a lot of fans and the promotion, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, the promotion, it's in their interest to sell holy crap moments, holy, you know, wow, oh my God, that was the most amazing finish. I saw a finish. I saw that. Like, we want to see finishes. We want to see conclusions. And that's just the reality of the situation. Again, he's not using this to say that Tom Aspinall did anything right or wrong in either direction per se, but he is just explaining a feeling. Yeah, it's kind of like when we saw Hamzat fight DDP, and I realized this because I was on this whole trajectory to try and defend Hamzat Chimaev, being like, hey, that fight was not boring. You're crazy if you thought it was boring. It was amazing. It was fascinating to see that level of domination and beautiful skill. It was like a work of art. But then somebody said in the comments, either you're bored or you're not. You can't control it. It's just it's the same thing. It's something. And after that, I was like, you're right. I can't even debate this. This is dumb. Some people felt it was boring, and that's how you feel. Sometimes you feel enthralled. I'm not going to debate it. It's just a feeling. So I think Anthony Smith is 100% right on this front. He was just vocalizing a feeling in the moment that probably was echoed amongst many fans. Now, another point that Anthony brings up too in this whole talk is he notes that, and this is very, very true, This is very, very true. And this is why even if you dislike Anthony Smith, you should be appreciative of him, because he sparks an emotion in you. He sparks you to want to comment, to want to get upset, to want to disagree. And that's part of the appeal of the sport. We have people supporting one fighter, people supporting the other fighter, and we get to have a discourse and a debate about what's going to happen. Who do we like better? Why this fighter is maybe cooler than the other person, right? We can have this discourse. And so Anthony Smith is one of these figures that makes it a more interesting and an engaging sport. And he talks about that right here. So he says, look, at the end of the day, if you're getting mad at me, I'm actually doing my job, because this is part of the intrigue of mixed martial arts.
On the other. That's why pay-per-views are opinion-based generally, because chances are there's going to be the same amount of people that agree as disagree. So when there's a shit ton of comments where people are like, yeah, I kind of agree with what he said, and then 50% are like, oh, he's full of shit, I fucking hate that guy. Like, that's the idea. That's the, like I said, you guys are in a matrix and you don't even realize it. Like, that's the whole point of the job. So I know that you're just hoping and you're typing your fucking ass off. Like, if he reads this, he's going to be so hurt. No, he's not. No, he's not. If he reads it, he's going to say, it looks like I did my job.
And he's right. And he did. And he is doing his job. And look, I hope that people walk away from this video, and I'm sure a lot of folks won't, but I hope some of you guys walk away from the video having a new level of appreciation for Anthony Smith. Even if he says things that you disagree with, I don't think you need to take it as an excuse to levy ad hominem attacks on it, as he mentioned, on his character, on his fight record, or all these different things. I think you should take it as a great chance to have one side of the argument be voiced and have somebody else weigh in on the other side. And that's part of this amazing dialogue that we get to have in this sport. Let him speak from the truth, speak from the heart, and speak his truth, and do it in a way where I feel like he's honest. He tells it how he truly feels. He's not trying to manufacture anything. In my opinion, I don't think he is. I know maybe some people might disagree because he's a UFC employee. You think, oh, he's a UFC shill. I hear this sometimes. I just don't buy it. I don't think he's that type of person. I don't think, I just think he has too much integrity, and he speaks his mind. That's probably why he loves to do the job. Now, he makes a couple other really fascinating points in this video. So I wanted to highlight this, and he comes back. He was one of the guys that said if Tom Aspinall did fight Jon Jones, that Jon Jones would win. Him, DC, a bunch of other, I feel like, really knowledgeable fighters, and also more importantly, fighters that had fought Jon Jones, felt this way. And I think this controversy and everything that has unfolded and happened around this, part of the backlash is due to the fact that the Jon Jones fight didn't happen. And we have MMA Guru and other folks like this who are just so on the anti-Jon Jones bandwagon, hated him so much, okay, that when he didn't fight Tom Aspinall, they basically made everybody believe, to the detriment of Tom, by the way, that Tom had essentially beaten Jon Jones. And therefore, if they did actually have a fight, Tom Aspinall would smash Jon Jones. It became this narrative that was just created out of nothing. And he touches on this point here, saying because of all this hate that was created on the YouTube space and on social media, people all of a sudden started to look at Tom Aspinall as this invincible juggernaut, which is simply not. And that's not a dig on Tom. It's just that's what happened. And I think that's what's contributing to the backlash. All to say that I think a lot of the folks that were thought they were maybe doing the right thing for Tom by just pushing and pushing and pushing this idea that Tom is amazing, Tom is incredible, Jon Jones is afraid of him, actually ends up now hurting him massively based on everything that's happened. So I'll let Anthony Smith talk about this in his own words. Check it out.
Great.
I think sometimes what happens in sports is our hate for one can unfairly elevate or move the position of another. So I talked a lot about in the week leading into the fight, and on the pre-shows on Friday, that everyone kept saying, well, Jon Jones did this to Ciryl Gane, and this is what Ciryl Gane did with Jon Jones. And I just kept trying to remind people, like, as great as Tom Aspinall is, he is not Jon Jones. And then we get in this Jones-Stipe thing, and then Jones is not going to fight Tom, and then he's going to fight Tom, and then he decides to retire. And I think that our hate, not me, but like as a community, the hate and anger that was being directed at Jon elevated Tom to an unfair position in his own right. And I don't mean that he didn't deserve to be where he's at in the sport. But I think it gave us unrealistic expectations of what Tom Aspinall is and what he's capable of, and or where he is currently in his career, right? Or is currently in his skill set. So then there's this shock and awe when he's not running through Ciryl Gane. And then I highlight it. And that pisses people off. And that's not saying anything negative about Tom. He's a goddamn heavyweight champion of the world. He's incredible. But he's not invincible. And there was this weird invincibility conversation going into the week. And I pushed back on that a little bit because it's unfair to him. I said it on the show. If Tom Aspinall has a close fight with Ciryl Gane and he struggles with him, but even still gets a win, it's as good as a loss because of where everyone else has put him, because of what Jon Jones did to Ciryl Gane. So we've put like Tom in an impossible, unfair position because of the community's hate for Jon.
He's spitting facts. I hope people that are Anthony Smith haters can just try and be objective for a second. Dude, he called this from a mile away. He said he had predicted exactly how this would unfold if it didn't go in Tom's direction. I know technically Tom, with the no contest, he retains the belt, but in the eyes of most fans, I think this almost is tantamount to Jon Jones beating Tom Aspinall because of the way that the narrative was going surrounding Tom, that essentially like Tom had beaten Jon by just scaring him away, so that it was like a foregone conclusion that Tom must be superior, Tom must be better, etc. Jon Jones said some things as well that maybe fed the fire of that narrative as well, saying that, oh, you guys just want me to fight somebody younger, somebody who's been training, whatever, like a very difficult matchup. So that seemed to further imply that maybe Jon Jones did think Tom Aspinall was so highly skilled that he didn't want to fight him. But anyways, my point is, I think Anthony Smith is one of the few folks that is really on point with a lot of his takes and the statements. And I think it's exemplified right here in that amazing clip. Now, another clip I wanted to include as well, just going back to Jon Jones. It's so crazy, man, with everything that's happened with Jon Jones, essentially the GOAT of the sport, and has just turned into such a hated, he's just become such a hated figure throughout this whole debacle with Tom Aspinall and not fighting him. And I think people have just, for his legacy has been, I think, temporarily tarnished. I don't think long-term, but it has been tarnished in the short term. But people forget all the crazy things that Jon Jones did. It's like so many of these Jon Jones haters, like they hate Jon Jones and they want you to hate him, and you have to hate him for all the things that have happened outside of the cage. And if you don't hate him, you're a bad person. It's like, dude, I see the things. It's not like I don't see all the things that is happening. I'm not trying to defend Jon Jones. I just don't think about the sport like that. I don't think there's fighters like, hey, I see this, that, and the other, and I need to hate that person. And you need to hate that person. If you don't, you're a bad person. Like, that's weird virtue signaling nonsense that I don't get into. I want to see good competition. I want to see good fights. I love this sport, and I want to see people fight at the highest level. And it's become, I don't even know what it's turning into. It's like this pseudo morality battle of, I don't know how it began. I literally don't know how it began, how it got to this point. But anyways, point is a lot of what Jon Jones has done in his fight career in the cage has been lost in translation because of all the controversy and the outrage and everything like that. So I thought Anthony Smith in this clip, somebody who has actually fought Jon Jones, has a very interesting take on what it's like to fight Jon Jones, why he's so different. Because people forgot. I think people have forgotten. Let's remember. Listen to what Anthony Smith has to say here.
I fought Jon Jones. I know what Jon does to people. I know, as big and bad as all of us fighters pretend to be, there is something about Jon that is different. And it's not just his skill set. Of course, his skill set is absolutely fucking incredible. It's like fighting an alien. Doesn't make any fucking sense. But the aura that surrounds him, like when you're in his presence, it's fucking different. It's fucking different, and it's uncomfortable. And we are all a bunch of maniacs. The reason we're able to do what we do is because we don't really get uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have a couple screws loose, and maybe not even screws loose. We're just wired differently. So I never really let the Jon Jones performance affect how I felt about Ciryl Gane, because I know what he had to go through. I know the mental stress. I've talked about it at length before, about like the hardest part about fighting Jon Jones is making it through fight week.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, he fucks with you. He's got a weird presence and aura. He's got a lot of people around him, and then those people are fucking with you. He's just a menace. And credit to him. I'm not even really talking shit about it, to be fair. It's a hard week. It's a hard week to get through. And then when you see him, like, you think it's gonna be normal once you get in the octagon, and then when he enters, it just feels different. It just feels different when he steps in, because you're standing there waiting on him, and like his walk takes forever, and he just seems to be somewhere else. Like, he's not where you are. It's different.
There you go. I thought that was a very interesting perspective. Again, from somebody who knows. People talk so much about Jon Jones, like he's one of the people that fought him. Same with DC. I think we have to defer to his opinion with respect to Jon Jones, how he fights, and all of the stuff that he mentioned. And I thought it was an interesting point to include. Now, another thing that Anthony Smith was criticized for was giving any sort of laudatory comments towards Ciryl Gane, at least some of the Tom Aspinall fans or folks that felt that Ciryl Gane fouled. Why should you give him any praise? Look, he explains it here, and I think he explains it very well, very nicely. Again, it all comes down to he's just being honest. People are getting so triggered and upset. Dude's just speaking his mind, and he's speaking his mind from a place of authority, in my opinion.
Like, it was a shitty situation. I feel for Tom, but I'm allowed to feel for Ciryl Gane too. I thought he looked great. He was very, very prepared. Like, you could tell he was super focused and dialed in and knew exactly what he was going to do. You could tell right away what his game plan was. That's a lot of work for both of them that went for nothing. And that, so I feel for them both. And I'm allowed to feel for Ciryl Gane because it wasn't intentional. I don't think anybody in the world is saying that.
Exactly. Why not? Why can't he feel for him as well? I know people want to just pile on to such an extent where, hey, man, like, you should have no sympathy. He cheated. He committed a foul, dude. Like, these things do tend to happen in mixed martial arts all the time. I did a quick calculation using ChatGPT, and there was an estimate of like 111 eye pokes in the last 3 years. Like this, I'm not saying we should just sweep it under the rug. But my point is people want to vilify Ciryl Gane so badly. It's like, dude, this is a part of the sport, for better, for worse right now. And I think Anthony Smith, it's a very fair point. Now we come to the last clip here.
I think of the Aljo thing.
Sorry. Now we come to the last clip here. And as we play this, I want you guys to keep in mind something. All the folks that have piled on the hate on Anthony Smith. Oh, and I don't really think I think if people sat down and really thought about why they're being so negative towards Anthony Smith, I think they would realize it's not really logical. Because when people criticize him and throw ad hominem attacks about some of his losses or getting beaten or things like that, actually, that should be a point of pride. That should be a point of praise where we say, man, this guy goes in there and he's maybe having some tough losses, but he still gives it everything. He's fighting like crazy. I know people say like sometimes he gives up or something like that. I'm in no position to say one way or the other, but I mean, like, he's going in there and having crazy fights, leading to, giving it his all. He's not checking out. He's trying. He's had some brutal fights where he's like lost teeth and so I just don't understand. It's almost bizarre world that people aren't giving him more praise as opposed to all this criticism for going in there and giving fans, I think, what we ultimately want. We want to see a hard fought fight, go to the distance, and or not necessarily go to the distance, but go to a finish. And he's done that many times. But anyways, so that's one point. The other thing is he just is giving his honest take. And here I think it's perfectly clarified. Would he have fought on? Yes. But does he think Tom made a mistake? No. That's the summation of his point, and I think it's a perfectly valid perspective, but I'm going to let him explain it here in full detail.
How many times have people come at me about the Aljo thing? What do you think? What do you think? I don't know. Only he knows. Mm-hmm. Is that the decision I would have made? Clearly fucking not, because I didn't. But that doesn't mean that I'm not saying my decision is right. If I was Tom Aspinall, would I have kept fighting? Yeah, probably. But I'm not saying
But
that's
it doesn't
correct.
matter, right? It's a completely
I'm
different
not saying
fight. You're
that
a
that's the
completely different
correct
person.
decision to make. I'm just that people ask, would you have kept fighting? Probably. Like even my own peers, like Matt Brown, love Matt Brown. Can't say enough great things about
Great
Matt
guy.
Brown. I can't think of even if I had something negative to say, I wouldn't say it out loud. I love that guy. But even he was like, I don't know what Anthony and Ciryl are talking about, blah, 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 blah. And then I text him myself and go, wait a second, bro. Are you telling me you wouldn't have kept going? Is that what you're trying to say? Is that what you're hinting? Goes, well, yeah, I would have. Then okay.
And I think that's the biggest point right there on that ending. I don't think he deserves any backlash for this whatsoever, because that is the truth. That's how he feels. Would he have kept fighting? Yes. And he says, but yet at the same time, he doesn't blame Tom Aspinall for doing what he did. I think DC made a similar point. The honorable, and again, look, this is DC's words, not mine. I'm not saying Tom is dishonorable, but DC said the honorable thing may have been to kept fighting, a la Anthony Smith against Jon Jones when he got that illegal blow. The smart thing would have been to bow out at that point and say, you know what, I'm going to take the no contest. I live to fight another day, keep my belt, get my payday, stay on top of the game. Like, it's the smart choice. And I think we just need to come to terms with that. And I'm not here saying that I think Tom should have fought or shouldn't have fought. I think, but this is where we get into the heart of this entire issue and this entire debacle, is that most fighters, I'm just quoting fighters, I'm not saying anything about Tom or Aspinall, or I'm not saying, most fighters seem to be saying, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, if I've got my count wrong, but I feel like most fighters seem to be saying, TJ Dillashaw included, a lot of these other guys, that they would have fought through. And again, not all eye pokes are built equal. So maybe with that specific type of eye poke that he received from Ciryl Gane, maybe most fighters be like, oh, no, that's what his vision was like. Now I can see it. Now I can feel it. Oh, no, I would have bowed out. We don't know, right? But that seems to be the consensus. And that, again, this is why I think the UFC is upset. I think this is why some other folks may be disappointed, because it was the main stage, the main platform. And there is a notion built in that he could have, but chose not to. And even if that's the case, again, I think fighters are also saying that's fine. You can you had that option. You can make that choice, but most of them wouldn't have. And hence, that's why the UFC is upset, because of their built-in expectations. So anyways, that wraps it all up. The point of this whole video was to showcase, I think, Anthony's beautiful response on a multitude of different topics and areas that I think needs to be getting more views. Make sure to check out his channel, On Paper with Anthony Smith. I really think it's a great YouTube channel, and he does great content. And yeah, like, it's growing for sure, but I think it should grow more. And I think also people, if you maybe give him a second chance and start to really listen to his takes and his perspective, you'll see, man, this is one of the best minds in the sport, in my opinion. Justin agrees with me. So that's all I got on this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click that like button, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.